items have been an integral part of competitive Pokemon battles since their introduction in Generation 2. Initially, the item pool was very limited, with the main held items being type-specific items that increase damage output, leftovers, and the occasional berry to cure status. However, we've come a long way since then, with many more competitive focused items being introduced. Today, everyone is familiar with the items such as the Choice Scarf, Heavy Duty Boots, Rocky Helmet, and Resist Berries, which have become staples of competitive singles, especially in the Pokemon Draft League format. Despite the popularity of these items, many others don't get the usage they perhaps deserve. In a format like the Pokemon Draft League format, where it's all about counter teaming and where the element of surprise is a very valuable strategy, there are plenty more items that can be of use and can really catch your opponent off guard. Today, Addison and I have compiled a list of the 10 most underrated items in Pokemon Draft League, and we'll explain why you should give these items a chance. If you go on to enjoy the video and learn something from it, make sure you go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel because we are on our way to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Also, make sure to leave a comment and let us know out of these 10 items, which one is your favorite. The Adrenaline Orb doesn't usually get much play in Pokemon Draft League, though it holds some very niche but hidden potential. When a Pokemon holding the Adrenaline Orb is affected by Intimidate, its speed stat is increased by 1 stage, allowing it to outspeed many threats and turn the tide of a battle. This can be particularly effective against teams that rely on Intimidate Pokemon to check certain threats and keep them at bay, as the unexpected speed boost can catch opponents off guard and put them into a tough spot. To maximize the effectiveness of the Adrenaline Orb, it is often best coupled with a special attacker or a setup move. Special attackers benefit from the speed boost without worrying about the attack drop from Intimidate, allowing them to maintain offensive pressure. Alternatively, using a setup move like Swords Dance or Dragon Dance can not only counteract their attack reduction, but also amplify your Pokemon's overall threat level. One of the main Intimidate Pokemon you should be targeting with this item would be Landorus Therian, as it is often used to switch into electric type Pokemon, seeing as it is immune to their attacks. This unexpected speed boost can enable your Pokemon to outspeed opposing Pokemon your opponent wasn't expecting and can effectively run away with the game. The ability to turn an Intimidate induced disadvantage into a speed advantage makes the Adrenaline Orb a valuable yet underutilized asset in competitive play.
The Mirror Herb is a new item introduced in Generation 9 that copies the stat changes of the opponent. This can be particularly useful against a plethora of new Pokemon that got Shell Smashed this generation, such as Torterra or Dreadnought, or against longtime Shell Smashers like Blastoise and Cloyster. The Mirror Herb is a low-risk, high-reward item that can outright win you the game if positioned correctly. Putting the Mirror Herb on bulky offense Pokemon can also punish opponents using speed-boosting setup, such as Dragon Dance, Rock Polish, or Quiver Dance. Finally, the Mirror Herb is a consumable item, which means games can be immediately won if the Mirror Herb is procced by an unburden user such as Hawlucha to instantly win the game. In one of the most infamous early generation Smogon draft matches, Mountay was positioned to win with his Terra Electric Quiver Dance Volcarona, only for the entire outcome of the match to flip on its head when opponent Vahe's Hawlucha revealed Mirror Herb on Volcarona's Quiver Dance, followed by Encore, enabling Hawlucha to set up and reverse sweep.
The Eject button is an often underused item in Pokemon Draft League due to its seemingly niche utility, but it can provide significant advantages, especially in such an offensive metagame. When a Pokemon holding the Eject button takes damage, it is immediately switched out, which allows for unanticipated and seamless transitions into more advantageous matchups. The sudden switch can create opportunities to bring in frail but powerful sweepers or just strong heavy hitters without having to take a direct attack. One of the better applications for this item is running it on Pokemon with Regenerator that lack momentum moves such as Slowking, Hydrapple, and Moongus, just to name a few. However, my personal favorite way to get incredible value out of this item is running it on Weather Setters so that you can set up the weather and get your Weather Abuser in on the same turn. Yes, your weather will only last 5 turns as opposed to 8 with the appropriate item to extend it, but the immediate offensive pressure you are able to apply is definitely worth the trade. In the latest PPL season I participated in, I had a Sun team consisting of Ninetales with Gouging Fire, and I often ran Eject button on the Ninetales to be able to get Gouging Fire in for free and just start to click buttons. In such an offensive metagame where momentum and quick responses are key, the Eject button's unpredictability and ability to turn the tide of a battle make it a valuable, albeit often overlooked tool in competitive play.
The Clear Amulet is also a new item this generation, which blocks stat drops that are caused by the opponent's Pokemon. For example, the Clear Amulet will block an attack drop from Landorus Therian's Intimidate, or any chance for a defense drop from the opponent's Crunch. but it won't block a Garchomp's defense drop if it uses Scale Shot, since that's self-inflicted. The Clear Amulet functions well on dedicated lead Pokemon who might be staring down opposing Pokemon like Crocodile or the aforementioned Landorus Therian. Clear Amulet also functions well on physical setup sweepers like Baxcalibur or Dragon Dance Necrozma, who might fear Intimidate or speed drops from moves like Rock Tomb, or even in incredibly niche situations in the highest level of competitive Draft League play, where Pokemon like Calm Mind Raging Bolt have used Clear Amulet to block Zapdos from clicking Eerie Impulse to lower its special attack back down. Clear Amulet also has niche applications against Pokemon such as Grimmsnarl, Incineroar, or even Alolan Persian, Pokemon that rely on pivoting in to sponge an attack and pivoting out with the move Parting Shot. The Clear Amulet not only blocks the attack and special attack drop from Parting Shot, but it blocks Parting Shot outright as well, meaning the Pokemon using Parting Shot can't even pivot out if faced with the Clear Amulet item. This dead turn that the Clear Amulet forces against opposing Parting Shot users can be game-winning if used in the right situation.
The Eject Pack is an underrated item in Pokémon Draft League due to its unique ability to maintain offensive pressure while giving you initiative. When a Pokemon holding the Eject button has its stats lowered by moves like Draco Meteor or Close Combat, it is immediately switched out. This allows your Pokemon to unleash powerful attacks that come with stat drops like Overheat or Leaf Storm without suffering the usual drawback of being left weakened and vulnerable. By triggering an immediate switch, the Eject Pack helps maintain offensive momentum, preventing your opponent from capitalizing on the lowered stats. This surprise switch also grants you initiative, allowing you to keep the offensive momentum, but also allowing you to bring in a Pokemon that is better suited to handle the current situation. As mentioned before, we are in an incredibly offensive and fast-paced metagame where maintaining initiative is a huge part of being able to win a game. So being able to do that while clicking very powerful attacks makes this item very valuable in the current metagame.
Have you ever looked at a matchup and said, "Oh shit, I have zero answer to this setup threat"? Well, have no fear, red card is here. If a Pokemon holding the red card is damaged, the red card activates and forces the opposing Pokemon into a random team member. In one Wi-Fi match, when I noticed that my team had no response to Belly Drum Titan under Snow, I ran a red card King Gambit paired with Endure. Titan was +6, behind a substitute, and the game looked to be immediately done for. But clicking Endure with red card King Gambit meant that Titan was forced out after damaging me down to 1 HP. And because it had already belly drummed, it could not do so again for the remainder of the match. But to clarify, red card doesn't need to be paired with Endure. Bulky regenerator Pokemon such as Amoonguss, Slowbro, and Galarian Slowking are especially effective at holding red card, taking one boosted hit from the opponent and forcing them out into another team member. Then, because of regenerator, the HP they lost can be restored back once switched out.
If you know me, you know I am a huge fan of weakness policy. Being able to turn in a tanky, bulky Pokemon into a big offensive threat is such an underrated strategy in a metagame where it's very much punch for punch. When a Pokemon holding the weakness policy is hit by a super effective move, its attack and special attack stats are boosted by 2 stages. The sudden boost in offensive stats will allow the Pokemon to hit back hard, often turning a seemingly unfavorable situation into an opportunity for a sweep or a significant damage output. In prior generations, weakness policy was somewhat exclusive to Pokemon such as Dragonite and Necrozma due to having abilities that reduce damage taken. But in this current gen, this item is getting much more traction on bulkier Pokemon such as Hisuian Goodra or even Pecharon. One of my personal favorite ways to use this item is to lead with a Pokemon holding the weakness policy, which in turn allows you to exert incredible amounts of offensive pressure from turn 1. I cannot recommend you guys use this item enough.
The Mental Herb, which is a one-time item that blocks moves such as Taunt, Encore, and Disable, has been around literally since Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, but I would argue its value is currently at its highest, especially in Draft League. See, in previous generations, the wide distribution of the move Toxic served as the best means of defense against bulky tanks and Calm Mind sweepers, but in this generation, Toxic was slashed from most Pokemon's movesets. Instead, the usage of moves like Taunt and Encore have majorly increased to combat these strategies. Well, what's the best way to combat Encore and Taunt? Mental Herb, of course. Mental Herb usage is growing because the meta is evolving. As Encore users like Uxie, Tinkaton, or the Ogerpons become more prominent and define the meta, the Mental Herb in turn will as well. One of Draft League's strongest players, Sablo, used Mental Herb on Calm Mind Terapagos to give himself a 6-0 instant win against Encore Iron Bundle. After clicking Substitute, Sablo can safely click Calm Mind without fear of Encore the following turn. and when the Iron Bundle clicks Encore, Mental Herb activates, and Terapagos KOs the Encore user with Terra Starstorm, and proceeds to win the game in only 12 turns. This dynamic between the increased usage and distribution of Encore, as well as the rising prominence of Mental Herb to combat this, is super interesting, and almost guaranteed to evolve throughout the generation. My prediction? It probably will mean considering drafting multiple Encore users on the same team.
The Sitrus Berry is a healing item that I've come to greatly appreciate recently. It stands out in my view because many players still default to leftovers as their go-to healing option, regardless of the situation, making Sitrus Berry significantly underutilized. I even have a small segment in a video where I discuss why leftovers isn't always the optimal choice for recovery, but I'll go over it again. When a Pokemon holding a Sitrus Berry's HP drops below 50%, the berry restores 25% of its maximum HP, which is incredibly valuable in the current Gen 9 metagame, known for its high level of offense. This quick burst of recovery can prevent 2-hit KO scenarios that leftovers might not mitigate, especially in the fast-paced environment we are currently in. In order for leftovers to heal the same amount as Sitrus Berry, the Pokemon would have to be in for 4 turns, which can be extremely difficult to do in such a fast-paced metagame. While leftovers still has its uses such as on a substitute sweepers or Pokemon that can stay on the field for extended periods, the Sitrus Berry offers an immediate recovery boost that can be crucial for more offensive Pokemon. It allows them to absorb a hit, avoiding a potential 2-hit KO, and immediately shift to applying offensive pressure, which is essential in today's aggressive playstyle.
Oh boy, it's time! The #1 underrated item in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Draft League is the Custap Berry. The Custap Berry, which procs when the user is at 25% or lower, allows the user to attack first, meaning, in the right circumstances, the Custap Berry grants you an immediate momentum shift in the game. You see, Generation 9 is defined by extreme power creep, which means incredibly strong Pokemon, new forms of potent sweeping potential in the form of Terra, new means to acquire speed control through booster energy and paradox Pokemon, as well as an increase in the viability of weather. In short, speedy win conditions define the game, and gaining speed control above your opponent is honestly most of the battle. The Custap Berry is an incredible defense against this meta. With Endure plus a Custap Berry in the back, you can prevent a sweep by clicking Endure, and ensuring you can outspeed and revenge the sweeper the following turn. Take Iron Valiant for example, an absolute demon with booster speed, but naturally fast as is, so fast in fact that there's very few Pokemon who can outspeed a booster speed Iron Valiant with Choice Scarf. In comes the Custap Berry. A very slow Pokemon such as Swalot can outspeed Valiant in a pinch after falling into Custap Berry range, KOing it instantly with Sludge Wave. While Custap is incredibly handy in stopping Gen 9 sweepers from snowballing your team, it also has exciting applications elsewhere. Pokemon such as Iron Hands and Ursaluna Blood Moon are so powerful yet so slow, making them perfect users of the Custap Berry in the early game. With their natural bulk and access to setup in Swords Dance and Calm Mind respectively, both Pokemon can be built to 1v1 an opposing Pokemon, but once they're about to go down to a follow-up Revenger, Endure plus Custap Berry can force one more surprise KO, allowing these mons to trade their own lives in exchange for at minimum 2 of the opponent's Pokemon, all thanks to Custap Berry. You might be thinking to yourself, won't Custap Berry be obvious if I click Endure to get into Custap range? Well, yes, but think about the mind games this forces. Regardless of whether your opponent knows the Custap Berry is coming or not, if the holder of the Custap Berry is about to unleash a strong attack that KOs the Pokemon in front of it, your opponent is going to be forced to stay in and die or switch out, allowing room for exciting predictions to be made. In a meta defined by quick-paced games and trying to trade your pieces for as many of your opponent's pieces as possible, Custap is a game-defining item, and I've been thrilled to see its usage soar this generation. But I also think the potential for it is even higher than we've seen. Go try it yourself. There's no better feeling than pulling an Uno reverse card at the end of the match with a surprise Custap Berry to pull out an unexpected victory.
And those are, in our opinion, 10 of the most underrated items in the current Gen 9 metagame. Please let us know of any underrated items we might have forgotten, and let us know which one is your favorite. Huge shoutouts to Addison for jumping on this video with me. Her links will be in the description. If you enjoyed the video and ended up learning something, I'd greatly appreciate if you left a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're looking to get better at Pokemon Draft League, check out this video right here. It's pretty good, I've heard.